and welcome to a new episode of بالمصري. أهلا بكم في حلقة جديدة من بالمصري. Today I want to introduce you to an Egyptian Tunisian poet called Bayram Al-Tunisi. Bayram Al-Tunisi was born in Alexandria in 1893 and he died in 1961. He was born to Tunisian parents and he is most known for writing azgal, which is poetry written in the colloquial Arabic. In the case of Bayram Al-Tunisi, it's of course in Egyptian Arabic. When I was younger, the volumes of his poetry were my favorites in my dad's library, and I would always sneak in and grab a volume. And I found it so refreshing to read his poetry because it was, first of all, it's written in colloquial, so it was very different from the poetry we learned in school, which was very classical in form and style and language. But also it was so full of humor and wit, as well as, of course, but this is something I appreciated later, full of social commentary and criticism and so much sincere expression of the grievances of the poor and disenfranchised in Egyptian society. I'm not going to say much about his life because what I first want to do is read a short article, which is a short biography of his life. And what I want to do then is to read two of his poems. And in the blog post, you will find the short bio with the Fusha original next to it, because it's originally written in Fusha, of course. And then you'll find the two poems with English translations alongside them. And in all cases, I will put references underneath to where I found the originals. And I will also make reference to what amendments I've made to the translations. And as always, after reading, I will make some comments on aspects of the language which I think are interesting to highlight. So, let's begin. بيرم التونسي شاعر وأديب وزجال مصري من أصل تونسي. بيعتبر واحد من أبرز شعراء العامية وكتاب الزجل في القرن 20. النقاد وصفوه بأنه فنان الشعب وشاعر العامية الأول. محمود بن محمد مصطفى بيرم اتولد يوم 12 مارس سنة 1893 في حي الأنفوشي في مدينة اسكندرية شمال مصر، وهو من عيلة تونسية كانت عايشة هناك. أبوه كان صاحب مصنع حرير، ولما محمود تم 4 سنين أبوه بعته الكتاب، فحفظ شوية صور من القرآن الكريم وتعلم مبادئ القراية والحساب. محمود ما استمرش في الكتاب كتير لأنه كان بيكره مادة الحساب، بس أبوه أصر على أنه يكمل تعليمه فبعته للمعهد الأزهري في مسجد المرسي أبو العباس في اسكندرية. لكن موت أبوه خلاه يسيب الدراسة وهو عمره 12 سنة عشان يدور على شغل. من وهو صغير بيرم كان بيحب الحكايات الشعبية، فابتدى يقرأ قصص أبو زيد الهلالي وألف ليلة وليلة وعنترة بن شداد وغيرها، وكان بيحفظ أبيات الشعر الموجودة في القصص دي. كانت أزجاله الأولى مليانة بالدعابة والنقد الاجتماعي. قصته اللي بعنوان البامية الملوكي والقرع السلطاني أغضبت الملك فؤاد فأصدر أمر بنفيه خارج مصر سنة 1920، واستمرت رحلته لآسيا في المنفى 18 سنة اتنقل فيها بين تونس وفرنسا، وعانى فيها آلام الجوع والغربة لغاية ما نجح في إنه يرجع مصر مرة تانية في 8 إبريل 1938 بعد موت الملك فؤاد. بيرم قابل الفنانة أم كلثوم سنة 1940 فكتب لها أكتر من 20 أغنية، منها أنا في انتظارك وحبيبي يسعد أوقاته والقلب يعشق كل جميل، وغنى له كمان مشاهير الطرب زي فريد الأطرش وشادية والكحلاوي. بيرم خد الجنسية المصرية سنة 1954 بعد ما رحب بثورة يوليو سنة 1952 وقدم لها كذا غنوة وطنية. بيرم ساب لنا ديوان شعر بيضم آلاف القصايد والأزجال القصيرة والطويلة وأغاني وموشحات، وصدرت أعماله الكاملة في 3 مجلدات. ومات محمود بيرم التونسي يوم 5 يناير 1961. Okay, so that was Bayram Al-Tunisi's biography. I don't want to dwell too much on the language. You have on the blog post the Fusha version alongside the Mosri version. Maybe a couple of things I wanted to highlight is, for example, where we talk about someone's age in Egyptian Arabic. So to say someone has turned a certain age, in Fusha we have in paragraph 3, so I've numbered all the paragraphs. Paragraph 3, عندما بلغ الرابعة من عمره. In Egyptian Arabic it is لما تم 4 سنين. So if I want to say I have turned 15, I would say أنا تميت 15 سنة. أنا تميت 15 سنة. In Fusha it would be أنا بلغت 15 من عمري. If I want to say someone is so many years old, I have 2 options. So in paragraph 4, we have, in Fusha we have وهو في 12 من العمر. I could also say من عمره. وهو في 12 من عمره. In the Masri version, I say وهو عمره 12 سنة. وهو عمره 12 سنة. Another very common way of saying the same thing is وهو عنده 12 سنة. So either his age was 12 or he had 12 years. Another expression is in paragraph 5, where in Fusha it says منذ صغره, from when he was little. منذ صغره. In Masri, what I said was من وهو صغير. So this is especially when I want to talk about someone's habits. So he did this from when he was young. I would say من و. So من وهو صغير. من وانا عندي 10 سنين. From when I was 10 years old. من وانا عندي 10 سنين. So the min here comes from the منذ, of course. So if in Fusha I say منذ كان عمري 10 سنوات, in Masri I would say من وانا عندي 10 سنين. And finally, just wanted to highlight the word كتاب, which occurs twice in this text in very different meanings. So in paragraph 1 we have that بيرم التونسي was واحد من أبرز شعراء العامية وكتاب الزجل. كتاب الزجل. So here كتاب is the plural of كاتب. So كاتب, the plural is كتاب in both Fusha and Masri. And then in paragraph 3 and 4 we have الكتاب again. But here it's a very different meaning and it's a singular word. Al-Kuttab, the Kuttab, is, I think we had it before in one of the previous episodes, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it is what in English sometimes is referred to as the madrasa, which is like the Quran school. In Egypt, you would have these in all. Yeah, we definitely talked about this in a previous episode. So in Egypt, Al-Kuttab is a Quran school, but they also teach other subjects there. So it was an alternative to schools, especially in villages, in poorer quarters, and so on. So Bayram was first sent to Al-Kuttab before he went to المعهد الأزهري في مسجد المرسي أبو العباس. So again, something similar to Al-Kuttab, but probably at a higher stage of education. Okay, now we get on to the poems. And the first poem I want to read is one that was written in the late 20s. And I have found 2 titles for this poem. One is عتاب, which is reproach or rebuke. And the other is العامل المصري, the Egyptian worker. And maybe the full title would be عتاب العامل المصري, because it is sort of spoken by an Egyptian worker, and the Egyptian worker in this poem is reproaching the richer people. So it's a kind of a gentle rebuke where he's complaining about the fact that he's the one who makes everything for the rich, shoes, houses, etc. But at the same time, he has to walk barefoot and in ragged clothes, and so on. The English translation is shown alongside the Egyptian original in the blog post, so you can check it there, and it is quite a literal translation. The English translation was produced by Gerald Trisna, and I have adapted it slightly to make it more literal so that you can see exactly what's being said. ليه أمشي حافي وأنا منبت مراكبكم؟ ليه فرشي عريان وأنا منجد مراتبكم؟ ليه بيتي خربان وانا نجار دوالبكم؟ هي كده اسمتي، الله يحاسبكم. ساكنين علالي العتب وانا اللي بنيها، فرشين مفارش قصب ناسج حواشيها، انيين سوائي دهب وانا اللي دور فيها. يا رب ماهوش حسد لكن بعاتبكم، من الصباح للمسا والمطرقة في إيدي، صابر على دي الأسى حتى نهار عيدي، ابن السبيل انكسى واسحب هرابيدي، تتعروا من مشيتي واخجل أخاطبكم، ليه تهدموني وانا اللي عزكم باني، انا اللي فوق جسمكم قطني وكتاني، عيلتي في يوم دفنتي ما لقيتش أكفاني، حتى الأسية وانا راحل وسيبكم. Okay. So one thing I wanted to point out is that Bayram Al-Tunisi wrote his poems in the first half of the 20th century. And he writes in colloquial Egyptian, but as you know, dialects are a living language and it changes all the time. So obviously still the same language, but there are words that kind of fall out of fashion and other words that become fashionable. So here there are words that we would not use nowadays. For example, in the first verse, he says, أنا منبت مراكبكم. Marakib is the plural of markub, and that is an old word for a shoe. So in Egypt, of course, we would say gazma for hidha, for shoe. I've also found that markub is still used in Sudan, and it refers to a very particular kind of leather shoe. And of course, gazma was still used in the past, but markub is one that's not used anymore. In the second verse, li farshi ariyan, why is my bed bare? Farsh is another word for sarir. So most of the times Egyptians will say sarir, but you will find, I think more like in the countryside, people may say farsh for bed. And farasha means to spread out, to lay out. And possibly that may have to do with the fact that farsh is not necessarily a permanent piece of furniture, but one that you spread out when it's time to sleep and then you roll again when in the morning. Okay, I want to get to the final poem now, and that is one called الاشتراكية, Socialism. And the English translation I put alongside the Arabic original is produced by Marilyn Booth. And what I've done is, because Marilyn has produced a kind of a literary poetic translation, what I've done is I have sometimes put between brackets a much more literal translation so that you can tell exactly what it says in Arabic. So I found the translation in an essay written by Marilyn called Bayram Al-Tunisi, azjal and the Egyptian Community, written way back in 1982. And in her introduction to this poem, she tells the backstory to it, and what it is that there was a sheikh called Sheikh Muhammad Al-Ghanimi At-Taftazani, and he was a leader of one of the Sufi brotherhoods, and he apparently cooperated with the British when they were worried about some food cooperative projects that were being established in Egypt. And this sheikh, apparently, he came out and spoke against this food cooperative, saying that it is anti-Islamic and that it is a Marxist or Bolshevist trend. So this poem was written by Bayram Al-Tunisi in response to this sheikh. And he was clearly outraged by this sheikh, and he wanted to point out that not only is it not a Marxist thing to do, but it's also very much in the spirit of Islam. So he put this sheikh in his place. So here we go.
جماعة شافوا الغلابة ميتين من الجوع، حنوا عليهم وقاموا وضبوا الموضوع، جاي انت بتقول دين البولشفيك ممنوع، إيش دخل البولشفيك في نجدة الإنسان؟ لا في الجوامع رأيت مثلك ولا في الدير، عالم ومسلم وبتعارض في فعل الخير، مدام فضيلتك بتاكل كستليتة وطير، خلي الذرة والدريس والفجل للخرفان. طب وانت مالك بتتفلحس وتتحشف وتخش في اللي مالك فيه وتتفلسف؟ هو نهار لما البلد دي هتتبلشف هيجردوك من العمة والجبة والقفطان؟ لأ، والتلامة بتستشهد لنا بالدين إنه أمر يبقى المسلمين جعانين. إن كنت فاكر شريعة العدل كان من بدعها لنين، انظر شريعة نبينا نازلة في القرآن. كان النبي والصحابة يجلسوا على الأرض، مفيش لهم حد لا بالطول ولا بالعرض، متجمعين والفقير عند الغني له فرد، والكل في الكل إلا في الحرام إخوان. سيدنا عثمان ما كانش عنده رتبة بيه، حتى الخليفة عمر كان بيشتغل بإيديه، ولا أمامنا علي كان عنده 1000 جنيه، ولا أبو بكر عنده 6000 فدان. ولما تتوزع الحنطة وصاع التمر كان اللي ياخده بلال قد اللي ياخده عمر. والأمر لله لوحده، هو صاحب الأمر، بينزل سماوي ولا دكريته ولا فرمان. أوجب عليهم إله العرش شيء معلوم، يطلع مفيش فيهم سائل ولا محروم. صبح الكلام ده النهاردة في بلاد الروم، والمسلمين أصبحوا لا دين ولا إيمان.
Okay, that was an excerpt from that poem, الاشتراكية, Socialism. I want to just highlight a few words. One expression is in the second verse where he says, إيش دخل البولشفيك في نجدة الإنسان. Now, you know already that for what in Egyptian we say إيه. إيش is more Levantine, so something you will hear in Syria, for example, إيش for what. But in Egypt we say إيش in very specific expressions where you want to say إيش عرفك, what do you know about this? So we wouldn't say أنت تعرف إيه, but إيش عرفك. And it's kind of something that's usually spoken in an angry tone, like إيش عرفك أنت? What the hell do you know about that? Or إيش عرفني? What do I know? And what we have here in the verse is إيش دخل البولشفيك? What do the Bolshevik have to do with that? Kind of he doesn't understand, like what are you talking about? What do the Bolshevik have to do with that? إيش دخل البولشفيك في نجدة الإنسان? This kind of angry tone continues in verse 5 where he says طب وانت مالك بتتفلحس وتتحشف وتخش في اللي مالك فيه وتتفلسف. So انت مالك, you may know this already, means like why is this your business? It's none of your business. Okay, so it's usually in a question form in Arabic when we say انت مالك. In English you would say that's none of your business. طب وانت مالك بتتفلحس. بتتفلحس I suggested in between brackets to pontificate. So we have two verbs here, تتفلحس وتتفلسف, and they are quite similar in the way they're used. So تتفلسف obviously comes from philosophy, فلسفة, and تتفلسف means to philosophize, and then تتفلحس means kind of to pretend to be smarter than you are, to try to say smart things. I can't say that I know what تتحشف means. I'm really sorry. I looked it up actually, and تتحشف, what I found was that it means to wear raggedy clothes. So it doesn't seem to make sense here, but it seems to be used as a synonym to تتفلحس. If anyone knows more about this, please let me know. In the next line, we have a nice early example of how Egyptians can get creative with foreign words and form words that sound a bit like they're actually Arabic. So we have هو نهار لما البلد دي هتتبلشف. In any other context, nobody would know what this word means, but because we have been talking about البولشفية, Bolshevia has been turned into a verb يتبلشف, to bolshevize. And nowadays, of course, we have plenty of these words, especially when it comes to technology. For example, we say things like يفرمت, which means to format, يسيف means to save a file, and so on. So that's a nice early example of that. One line down, we have لا والتلامة بتستشهد لنا بالدين. This is a very kind of concise expression, and any Egyptian would know immediately what this means. لا والتلامة. First of all, what's تلامة? تلامة, تلم means when someone is stupidly stubborn or stubbornly stupid. So he's both at the same time. He's stubborn and he's stupid. تلم. And then no and means something like not enough with that, but also your stubborn stupidity. Or like, and on top of that, you're so stupid that you are quoting religion. لا والتلامة بتستشهد لنا بالدين. Okay, so I've looked at the rest of the poem now, and I think from both the literary translation of Marilyn Booth and the literal versions that I've provided, you can sort of understand the rest of the poem. So I will leave it at that, but please let me know if there's anything in the poem that doesn't make sense to you, and I will clarify that. Thank you very much for listening and I'll see you next time. إلى اللقاء في حلقة جديدة من بالمصري.